I was surprised when I came yesterday into the Limmerstraße and saw the shows in the galleries. There was already a certain tendency not to show a biography on the wall, and not to have labels to the works. They say, okay, we have it on the paper, and the customer takes the paper home. Yes, they can repeat it. Okay, I said, maybe, maybe not. In Hamburg, at least, we have both. We have the labels, the bio, and the paper. Yes, but I was more surprised that also in the Kunsthalle there was an artist. What was this? This is Euler, Jana Euler. What was his name? Christian, I don't remember quite well. I didn't see anything of works, just some pictures. And then I went back to the desk. There was nobody at the desk. Do you have some documents about Mrs. Euler? No. Yes. Where is it? Yes. And finally, a second person was asked, and the third person was asked, and the fourth person finally said, "Oh, this is what was her name? Jana Euler, I think, born in Freiburg, Germany, in 1973." Wow, that was information. Yes, and I said, do you think this is a certain trend? Okay, for galleries, I may have a certain understanding, although we have done some labels here, yes. I was also asked not to take labels, but with my friend Barry, we wanted to have some labels, yes, when I asked him. Okay, what, do you have some experience about that?
I don't think I need a microphone. It's small enough room. Yeah. I mean, I find it frustrating if we're a little off course speaking about labeling policies of galleries and museums. But I mean, just recently was the Sigmar Polka show at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, and it was the most massive exhibition to date in his career in America. To have such an exhibition and to have so much work, I mean, what Harald and I were just discussing about this work before was the historical context of what was happening at the time when the work was being made. We want to know simple facts to put things into a context, and to go through a Sigmar Polka show at MoMA with such a gigantic and sprawling exhibition, and not to be able to know when they're mixing drawings, paintings, and videos from all different periods. I mean, to come into this show, and this is an artist that maybe not too many people are familiar with, and to see quotes and labels tells a story, and I think that it's very important to have this biographical information and aspects of his life.
And it was not in New York, where was it?
The
labels, or where was the information? In a book.
In a book,
so you have to turn, look at it, and then look into the book. And where did you take more time, in the book or on the wall?
I still haven't looked at the book. 6 months later, it's sitting in my house. I haven't looked at it. And I just think that an artist works in a given time, in a given context, and it's very important to be able to situate the work in a continuum. And I think that to see this work and to see elements of the artist's thinking is almost looking at another painting of an image of what's inside of his mind, and I think that that's very important.
Yeah, just to begin with the bio, yes. In the last moment, we fixed the dates of the birth of Philippe Vandenberg and the date of the death, and it's extremely important. He was born. The dates of birth and death already tell a story and give you a first hint what you have to expect from this artist. He was born in 1952. Yes, and he was 20 years old in 1972. The next year there was the oil crisis, and it was a total breakdown of the art market in the 70s. And to know that, it was a decade of the French philosophers, of the post-structuralists, the philosophers. And in Germany and other countries, there was hardly any painting class at the academies. It was all installation and multimedia art, yes, and the painting and the sculptures were discriminated as traditional art, how do you call it, of representation. They were representing the rich, the church, the nobleman, and the big bourgeoisie. And so this was the most hated art style of artworks. You have to know that if you study this, then you live with this century, with this decade. It's a very special decade, yes? All art had to be gesellschaftsrelevant. It's difficult to translate. Relevant for society conditions. For the Vandenberg took over la condition humaine, that was of François Lyotard, yes, post-structuralist. But so it is very, very important that he painted in a time where painting was totally discriminated. That is the first, and he started it when 20 years old. Actually, he painted already earlier, but this is a very important period of his life, about the 20s. And what is about the hippies and the punk? Was he a revolutionary? Was he? What was that? The revolution of the punks?
He said before that he was too young to be a hippie and too old to participate in punk. That
was the point. You see, this is also very important. We know this story from an artist who is rather familiar or rather near to Philippe Vandenberg. If you go into details, that is Mike Kelly. Mike Kelly also committed suicide later, exhausted from the market. Yes, you know, in the end, he changed from Metro Pictures, old-fashioned gallery in New York City, to Gagosian, and nobody would have expected this political artist, Mike Kelly, to change to Gagosian. But he told me in a conversation, Harald, the old ladies at Metro Pictures, they don't give any money. Gagosian said to me, you can have all money you want for 5 years, and you give us all the pictures or all the artworks you make within these 5 years. But only if you do this, you can follow up your relation to Metro Pictures or what you want, and you can stop our relation from one day to the other, then we don't pay you any more money, yes? So it was a nice offer, yes? Nice offer like Harald and others made to Picasso in the early 20th century. They paid him a check every month, and they came in the summer holidays and said, I have a choice of 20 Picassos from what you did over the year. Yes? So it is a certain system which is not so bad for an artist, but Mike Kelly didn't come along with that. He said in the end, I talked to him, I think, six weeks before he committed suicide. He said, Harald, I wanted to be a hippie and anarchist, and I ended up with 30 employees. That was his final remark, and this is a little bit comparable to Vandenberg in some respects. But you see, and he said I was too young for the hippies and too old for the punks, so it was in between. That were the two, let me say, revolutionary or two.
I mean, I think they're two different. Mike Kelly was, again, he was a very commercially successful artist, but in a certain level, the success contributed to his death, because I think that the obligations that Gagosian and this pressure of constantly having to feed the market it was this inner conflict that he never was able to transcend. And I think it's a different case here because Vandenberg never had the financial success, and he was never embraced to the extent that Mike Kelly was during his lifetime. But in a way, they had the same sort of conflicts. And when you look around this room, conflict is almost palpable inside of this man, where you see beautiful, formal, painterly works that are geometric here and expressionistic, and at the same time you have this kind of inner rage and these demons that come to the surface when you see some of the more hateful expressions, whether it's kill everybody, kill the dog, kill your parents, kill the family, kill. So it's this kind of, and you can almost kind of sense, and you're feeling this battle going on. And with Mike Kelly, there are these external forces, like the demands that he couldn't constantly fulfill. And with Vandenberg, it was almost like this whole thing was playing out inside of his mind, psychologically.
Okay, one can think about it and prove it naturally. Yes, but it's not so far away. Elaine, when did your father die exactly in 2008? Or what date?
9.
What month?
June.
Yeah, so he did not have the pleasure to see the Lehman Bank breaking down. I think it was on the 13th September of 2008. And that was the same day when Damien Hirst made this famous auction at Christie's, Sotheby's, yeah, you're better at this space, and had an auction record of, let me say, 140 million whatsoever, pounds or not pounds. It was like in London. And on the same day when the Lehman Bank broke down, it was this strange auction, which was, this is a historical day. I think it was the 13th and 14th of September 2008. And the war, 2 weeks before, or 3 weeks before, there was the big show of Jeff Koons in Versailles. It was the first time that a chateau like Versailles opened the doors to some, I don't want to be mean to Jeff Koons, to some pop artists, yes, and with these strange puppets and whatsoever, and it was very officially opened by the Minister of Culture of Paris, and the main money sponsor was Pinot, yes. So I think he was very lucky to not have the experience of that, I want to say. But there you see how only dates can be very relevant to have first thoughts about the author. When I was asked to, I bought, you saw him 2 years ago in the Hauser show first. I worked of Falckenberg, yes. Yeah. And I think I bought some drawings, and then I was asked to have this, to organize the show, and I went to Brussels to the studio of Philippe, and it was a very interesting day, and there were different kinds of work. There were kinds of work who were a little bit dark and had a certain tendency to show the fight he had with the evil in himself and the evil of the world, and with the other side is to get rid of this evil, to have a certain salvation of this evil. Yeah? And I made the choice to show this darker side. So I selected the works, and you see now how important it is. I did it intentionally because of the dates already. I had my ideas about the dates, and why was he painting in that time? Yes, and this is. Do you have any more ideas why he went against all trends?
Well, I mean, in a certain sense, that they're painterly abstractions, sometimes incorporating text, but when you mentioned before that the prevalent mode of making art in the 70s, this anti-material movement, that the work is very conceptual for me. In a sense, it's like, it's conceptual painting, so by incorporating text and philosophical discourse into the work and the expressions of his intent and mentality, it's almost like, you know, it's a contrarian move, and it's very much to go against the grain, and he was very much connected and painted and very conscious of historical artists and referencing these works throughout his career. So he lived and dwelt in historical art and the art that came before him. So I think he wanted very much to carry on a tradition in this sense, but at the same time almost destroy it. So again, it's these like negating impulses where he's painting along the lines of a very significant art historical tradition, and then he's also trying to destroy it. And he spoke in his writing often about these kinds of creative destruction. So really, by destroying something, through the process, you end up creating something. And like you see, they're oftentimes extraordinarily beautiful in a very simple way. They're just stunning to look at and elegant. And then you also have this underlying conceptual side.
Yes, he wrote a lot. He wrote philosophically, and he wrote poems, and he wrote very much about painting. It's, after Gaston, for me, one of the very few artists who exactly described how his painting procedure was. Very interesting to see in the books. If you want to have a look, again, writing, yes. Nothing on the wall, I mean, we look for the writing. Yes, and you see there some process. There was a fight in itself, also as a mirror of the society against evil, I already told. And certainly it had also something to perhaps speak about where he came from his father. The title of the show, Dog Day. We don't have to be very specifically, but it has something to do with the profession of his father, who made dog breeding. Yes. So there was a quote in the first wall that he said, this was fascinating, and okay, like Kafka and others, he didn't like his father very much. We don't want to tell this story of a father-son relation, but I think if you see all this, you can already. I wanted to say that this goes without words. We don't have to explain that. That he had a very difficult, position to his father, because he killed the dog today, kill them all. What does it mean? Kill them all? Kill all the dogs, or kill all the people in general? And then he naturally added, killing himself is the next step. Yeah? So this was something, kill them all. He said something about the niggers. It was in a poem, yes, where he referred to niggers. Yes, niggers naturally, I think, in the context of the colonial past of Belgium. Yes. They become perhaps and therefore they were niggers from Congo, yes, not from the United States. Yes. You commented that in your essay. Can you tell some words about it?
Well, I mean, by using this derogatory word and a loaded word like that within his writings, I just think that he's identifying with a subjugated person, with someone who's oppressed and not being able to fully express themselves. And in a way, it's objectionable when these terms are used. He made many drawings with swastikas in them, and you're using these coded terms that have all of these evil connotations, and at the same time, like there's a song with John Lennon, right, saying that women are the leaders of the world, and then Paul Tech made these Bojangle drawings, and Paul Tech made that. Harald and I curated a Paul Tech show, workshop show at his museum in the Reina Sofia and the CKM, and he made these references to subjugation, black culture, and so it's something that it's objectionable, but it's highly charged, and you just get this. You get the feeling that he was just, it was this constant, like, trying to push buttons and to push people and to provoke, really. Yeah. So, but at the same time, I think that there was a sympathy that he felt for people that by nature are faced with oppression and subjugation.
And he described himself as a nigger.
Yeah.
So it was not out of. And this is very important. And there was, you see, you can correct me directly if you want. I have not so much knowledge about Belgium, but I always compare Belgium to Austria as two countries where you had this big fights between the churches. See, for instance, Austria was a Protestant, and then I think the Kaiser of Austria or the King of Austria, I don't know exactly, made a deal with the Pope, and they had the Counter-Reformation and changed it all within a few years back to Catholicism. So the outcome was a big disaster, and nobody could identify themselves anymore. With what? With the Protestant or with the Catholic, and there was a lot of the result was bigoterie. This was just doing something like this, but not really. And I think this is very similar in the history of Belgium, where you have, you still have, therefore Vandenberg is so actual, have it with the Walloon and the Flandern, yes. I don't really know the English word of Flandern, I say it in German, you know. And Flandern is traditionally Protestant, or big parts, the parts more to Netherlands, where the speech is nearly the same as this. But yes, I know, I've spoken to many Belgians and they always shake their heads. This is okay, but for me, there are strong communities in Flandern, especially in Antwerp and Ghent, which are strictly Catholic, and they are in a way in a diaspora in this Flandern country, yes, and the religions. Would you add something from the point of view of religion in his work?
I mean, for me, I think in the end he painted. Painting was his religion, and he found this kind of devotion to work. And in his writings, he constantly expressed the fact that, in a sense, making art and the actual making art was the only thing that kept him alive, and for him that was his God, and that was his saving grace, and that's only his kind of determination to continue to produce and to explore these paintings and making these constant bodies of work. For him, I think in the end he substituted and created his own God in a kind of Nietzschean sense.
Yeah, we know from his diaries that the first escape from his home, from his father, from his family, was going to the big museums, and there he admired works of, we would guess it, and we would guess it without reading it, of Hieronymus Bosch, of Rembrandt, of Géricault, and so later Picasso. So this was the world he escaped to first, and he writes he was deeply religious in the beginning. In the show we have the final result. Yes, step by step I became aware that God, I cited, I quoted,
he became aware of God.
That God only exists through his big absence. So he, in the process of his development, he moved more and more away from God, and so this may be the reason he didn't find. But he never could really solve himself from that. So he always was between the two frontiers, and that is for me the expression of his work. And he fought so long, and in the end he was no more strength to fight this battle.
I mean, for me, there's also a kind of tragedy that you sense in the work, or you experience it. I always say that it's worse to be too far ahead of your time than it is to be behind it. Because if you look at this work and you go through this building today, this work could have all been made within the last year, and the work throughout his career was very prescient by incorporating text, this kind of conceptual mode of painting. If you look at artists like Mark Flood, for instance, is an American artist who's showing on the international circuit, and he also has used some very harsh, I mean, he made a painting in the 80s that said "Eat human flesh." These types of very abrasive provocations incorporated into painterly ways. So it's this kind of inherent contradiction that you see between some of the works and often in the same works.
Yeah, okay, and he said he was always outside the trends, yes? As we see it from his dates already of birth and from his dates from his state of dying, and he said he was naturally aware, like Mike Kelly, of all the trends of the art world, of the art market. He wrote a lot about it, and independent of the further with Jeff Koons and this disaster with the Lehman Brothers. But yeah,
he said in his writing that he felt very distinctly the separation between the market and the work. And for him it was a huge divide, and he spoke about having no interest in the selling aspect. But I think at the same time it must have been very hurtful to a person who spent their entire life building up this immense body of work, and to have, you know, there's Harald was mentioning the process of going through the studio. I'm guessing that there are thousands of drawings still remaining and hundreds of paintings. So it's one thing to say, I have no interest in the market, but at the same time, it's unavoidable that he's suffering because he's not being remunerated well in his lifetime for his body of work. And back to these wall labels in the bio, if you put on the wall that this art was made by a 25-year-old kid in New York or something, nobody would blink twice. It would make perfect. I mean, it's a little deeper than a lot of the work that you see by some of these young kids from New York, maybe even down the hall today. But the work is just fresh, and it's completely relevant to our lives and the art world and the art market, and it presents a host of very intriguing questions. For one, I think it's amazing that a gallery as successful and important as Hauser Wirth to undertake the representation of an artist who's deceased without a complex and a successful market is really an incredible step for the gallery, because in a sense, when you deal with an artist it's more difficult to help to create or further a market for a deceased artist who already has a mature body of work than it is to start with a young artist and start from zero and start to build in the fairs. I saw this work a few years ago when they first brought it to Basel and brought it to my attention. So in a way, it's an incredible undertaking by a commercial gallery to put this art, which relates to Paul McCarthy and Jason Rhodes.
I wanted to come from another point and then we come back to what to say. To the same point.
I beg your pardon.
No, I think one should interrupt each other. I just wanted, because I wanted to take that as a very important point to the end. Why Hauser is dealing with this question, I would like to discuss with you, and this is, I think, a deeper point, an important point. You see, we have in the postmodern art world, and if you see today's shows in the time of anything goes, you don't have a relation which goes deeper. And the result of this is that shows, as also in the showroom we go back retro, and we discover or rediscover older artists, as we rediscovered Paul Deck, I think with great success. And there are, this is since long years, these are years of rediscovering artists. 5 years, 6 years ago, Balisari was really forgotten. Now he is a world star with very high prices, or maybe it's 8 years ago. But I remember that the works, they are now $500,000, $700,000. I could buy them for $10,000 just a couple of years ago. So see also with Vito Accountion, one of your favorites, you see there is a certain ritual movement. I wanted to bring this point to a more general context. Yes, and the reasons are clear. You can judge these artists better because you have references. You have books and you have comments, and then you can better evaluate this work. Yeah, this work, and it's very difficult to evaluate a new work. This is a new work. I would like to. I would like to make, for me, and I think this is also a question of Hauser and Wirth, to make only historical shows. Maybe, but history is very interesting. If the history is still actual, is still alive, then what would be my question to Vandenberg? Is it so that I would like that you follow your story up? Is it so that that for Hauser and Wirth, or is it so that the work of Philippe Vandenberg is actual, although it seems old already 30 years ago, or 20 years ago, because it never took up to the latest trends. They were not trendy, but is it now in the trend? Is it, how is it with Hauser? I would specify this question when I listen to you.
How?
Now, why do you think Hauser would put him into that program, to say it so directly? No, let us face it, perhaps I don't know what they do.
I mean, if you look, for instance, this painting on the left reminds me of Mary Heilman painting, which is another gallery artist, a great painter who's in her 70s. She's been at it for decades and decades, and it's beautiful and timeless and wonderful works. And in a way, I think that the reason that this work is in this gallery now is because of its relevance, because of its freshness, and because it's applicable to what we see so much around in terms of you go to an art fair. And so the thing is, I mean, it's even more resonant when you think about when it was done, how it was done, and what the circumstances were during his career. But if you just look at, if you separate all the biography and all the labels and you put it into a mix, it's very relevant work that touches on a lot of the trends, so a lot of the strains of different works that you see today.
But especially also, we have naturally Paul McCarthy and Jason Rhodes are represented by this gallery, and Paul McCarthy is from the idea, not from the style so much, but from the idea of his work, very close to Falckenberg, I think. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and also Jason Rhodes, and we have still the open question of Mike Kelly, yes, because the estate of Mike Kelly is reorganization in Los Angeles, and I think they have not yet decided with what gallery they would go ahead. And the estate was Paul Schumann, he's still not there, but the other was there. And he now leads the Hauser and Wirth gallery in Los Angeles. And I would wonder if they didn't pick up some discussions to incorporate Mike Kelly into the program. That's just speculation.
I mean, speculation on that one.
Yeah, we want to make some speculation.
I mean, that's the way the art market works, is that there's a bunch of scavengers flying around. I mean, Gerhard Richter's primary dealer in New York, Marion Goodman, makes people sign a non-disclosure agreement about her age when you work with her. She's well into her 80s, and all of the galleries are small, circling around Gerhard Richter. So this type of activity within the art world, of people coming and going, and you see that all the time. So I would very much think that all of the obvious people are trying to get a hold of Mike Kelly's estate.
Yeah, I think this, and we could refer, if we go to a philosophical point, we could refer to Samuel Beckett, perhaps.
Well, I mean, you see a lot of, I mean, for me the work is very existential, it's very psychologically charged. There's a lot of frustration that the artist must have experienced throughout his entire life, living through a period of like the 80s when artists like Julian Schnabel were the rage, and the art market really solidified in the 80s, and to be largely left outside. I mean, it brings to mind back in, and it brings to mind Thomas Mann, or stories of being always excluded, left on the outside. A big party's going on, and you're not invited to it, but you're there amongst your peers. So it must have been incredibly difficult, a burden.
And if you go with this dealing with all the evil, we could speak also of Philippe Vandenberg. Philippe Vandenberg, who said, following the Roman, I don't know, is it in English, the Roman of Isaac Babel, who went with the Cossacks. He wanted to be a Klansman, with the Ku Klux Klan head over it, because he said, if I want to show the evil in me and the evil of the society, I have to go away along with them. I cannot judge it from the other point. This is so too theoretical. So he wanted to be part of the Klansmen, whom he naturally hated, to show that. And this is a little bit, this is parallel to Falckenberg, yes. He said in the one quote, the quote was Goya, about the disasters de la guerra. Yes, he said, I have this sort of, how do you call it, clean himself. He wanted to seize the evil, he wanted to figure out the evil, to be able to fight it, to purge himself. This is again a very religious access, and this has also something to do with Samuel Beck at the endgame. I think this is a story of the master and the servant, the old story, which was described everywhere, and the servant, the master became older and older. See here the old masters became older and older, and the servant had some fought against his master, and he became more and more powerful. But in the end, he didn't dare to push him aside. That was the end game. And you said in your Vandenberg, yes. His version was an end game that spelled game end. The finish of our little discussion. And I hope you enjoyed it a bit, and actually you could have some questions, or would you like to add some game ends? We have the parallel to that. I don't know whether you know Werner Fassbinder, the filmmaker in Germany, and he spoke about the biological film. And I think it's a little bit the same with the process and the end game and game end. There is a biological film. You cannot go away from this or that. He's always involved in it, and then the film ends. The film rises. Yes, that is game end. Okay, thank you very much. Hope you have some questions.
Harald, the question again is not for any of you. I have a question for the children who are with us now. Mo and Hélène will be that brother. How does it feel for you that you have your father's magnificent show here, but at the same time you're going to part with a few of them? How does it feel? You live all your life with all these paintings. Some of them are brutally painful even to look at because there's a history behind it. How do you feel, Mo?
Well, I used to live with them. My parents divorced when I was 14 years. So I moved to the studio, to live in the studio when I was 14. And I used to live 1 week with them and 1 week with mother. And I really almost slept in the studio. During the period, he made this kind of fictional horror things. And I remember I went to school and I came back at 5 o'clock. And I entered the studio and looked over all this horrible feelings. And that was quite difficult, of course. But he said, let's go to eat something. And somehow, with us, with me, I think so, he tried somehow to not normalize, but keep me away of it, I don't know. He tried to keep a distance with the things he did on the painting, and he just eats spaghetti afterwards. And, but still, it was good. I could go to my mother again the week after, you know, to have a good sleep.
But now in the present time. Now, how do you feel?
I have to be honest. I have to grab a bit right now because it's terrible. He's not here anymore to experience. People are looking at work, honest work.
But is it relieving for you that perhaps you see a picture of where the dogs, I think,
I have to,
is it relieving for you that somebody perhaps is going to buy this entire collection and it will be unleashed from your pain as a 14-year-old boy?
Yeah, also because I see that I'm not the only one who's seeing that and I think people feel the same somehow. When they look at it, so it's good to share it with other people. I think that it's not in the closet and it's bright hanging on the wall, and share it to people. And I feel happy about it, but still I feel pain also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How did you discover the artist?
2 years ago, when there was the first show, showing works from Philippe, and I bought, I think, 3 drawings. Yes, so not the 2 ones here, 3 drawings. And then I was asked by Ivan whether I would make a show. That was all. But then I went into the work, and he's really a great artist for me. So this is just but this is very personal. Say yes or no, but for me personally, he's a great artist and someone really to rediscover or to discover.
I saw the work 2 years ago at an art fair, and I thought it was I just thought it was made by the newest young artist at Hauser and Wirth. I had no idea. I just was drawn to the work and found it immediately compelling, and kind of spoke to the gallery about it there, and then they sent me all the material. I didn't buy one, sorry, but I related to the work immediately, and then I was having lunch with Harald, and he said that he was organizing the show, and I read an essay, and I thought, well, I'm honored to work with this great institution. I'm honored to work with Harald again, and then I started over the summer to really get into the work and read it, and it was shocking and a revelation. I mean, it took me, I remember the first time I started to read it and really apply myself, it took me the 4 hours to read 10 pages. It was so dense. It was like philosophical, you know, like Hegel. It was so incredibly compressed. And every sentence, I started to take notes, and I realized I copied the entire essay, every single line, because every sentence was so incredibly informed and you could feel the sensitivity and this pain, and it was just incredible. Very rarely do you have an artist that goes into such unbelievable detail about the processes, not just about how they're making it, but what they're thinking at that very time. And really, I was just like, I was in shock, identified with so much of the thought. And the work, like I said, for me to see this work, they're just incredible pieces that could have been painted yesterday. Not that you asked, but I told you anyway. Look at that.
Okay, we certainly did not cover all aspects. There are many more aspects to see, because we made a plaidoyer for the written word as well, yes, and the combination of words and figures in paintings. You see here the painting, K.A. means kamikaze, that is killing others and killing himself. So there you only see how actual his work is under the latest developments in the Islamistic movements. So he's an artist who is very action. Okay?
Let's ask Dieter Meyer his opinion.
Yeah, Dieter Meyer just arrived, but he has still to orientate himself. Okay. Yeah. So, thank you very much.